Bismillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, inshallah, we are talking about the inverse relations and the function. What is the meaning of function? Function. What is the meaning? What do you know about the
when
function?
there's no more than one x value.
No more than one x value?
When you switch y values with x and x with
My
y.
question, what is the meaning of function?
Oh, function, okay.
That means for each value of x, for each value of y, no wait. For each value of x, there's only one value of y.
For each of one value for x, for each value of x, there is exactly one image at y. Okay. So function is the relation between two sets in which each element of the domain connected only one time with the element of the range, all of the elements of the domain. How we know that the relation is a function or not function from the graph? How you know that the relation is a function or not function from the graph?
You do the vertical line test.
A vertical line test. What is the meaning of a vertical line test?
Drawing a straight line, and if it hits one point, it's a function. If it hits
if
more
that's
than
more than one point, it means it's not function. The vertical line test, that any vertical line that if you can draw and this line intersect the graph at more than one point, then this relation is not function. But there is only one point lies on the same vertical line for all of the graph. It means this graph is representing a function. So now we'll talk about the inverse. As you know, that the inverse, we just change the value, the x instead of y and y instead of x, and the domain becomes range and range becomes the domain. So we need to check. Suppose that we have a relation, and we need to check if the inverse would be function or not. We have a function for any function that we have. Suppose that we have a linear function. Linear is represented as a straight line. So we need to check if we find its inverse. If the inverse will be function or not, that's our question. So to find if the inverse will be a function or not by using the horizontal line test. The horizontal line test. So now we have two tests now. The vertical line and the horizontal line. What is the purpose of using the vertical line?
To see if the reflection will be a function. Inverse will be a function.
Just checks if so.
The vertical line, if that's function or not. The vertical line, if that's function or not. The horizontal line, we use it to check if the inverse will be function or not. How that? If the horizontal line intersects the graph at more than one horizontal point, it means the inverse is not function. The inverse is not function. Again, for this one. Like now, if you draw any horizontal line for the linear, it will intersect at exactly one point. Is that right?
Yes.
So the inverse is a function. Now the parabola. The parabola is a function or not function?
It is a function.
But if you want to find its inverse...
It's a function, but not an inverse function.
The parabola is a function, but its inverse is not function. Understand this one?
Yeah.
Yes.
The parabola is a function because you can draw, if you draw any vertical line, it will intersect the graph at only, or hit the graph at only one vertical point. But if you draw the horizontal line, it will intersect at 2 points. It means the inverse is not function. That is the meaning of the horizontal line test. You know the difference now between them?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So we need to graph each of the following equation using graphic calculator, but we will not use the graphic calculator. We just know how to graph it. Then apply the horizontal line test to determine whether the inverse, the inverse function exists or not. Yes, right, yes, or no. So what is the type of this function? What is the type? We remember how we can graph this one.
Absolute value.
The absolute value. How we can graph the absolute value, if you remember?
It's a V. It's a V from
it's a V shape. It's V shape.
Starting from our
from the origin point, one on the
not from the origin point. Not from the origin point.
One to the right. One to the right.
One to
the right.
Yes.
Because it's x minus 1. Got it.
One to the right. So that is the graph with an easy way. That's from the graph.
It's 1 to the left. One to the right.
One to the right.
One to the right.
Okay.
One to the right.
So the graph will be from one unit to the right. Then that will be the absolute value function. Okay. So the inverse, this relation is a function or not function?
Function.
It's a function, because if you draw any vertical line, it will intersect the graph at only one vertical point.
One point.
But if you draw the horizontal line,
2 points.
it will intersect at
2 points.
2 points. So the inverse, f inverse of x is not function.
Not a function.
So parabolas can never be.
Its inverse is not, yes.
Yeah, okay.
The parabola, the absolute value, is not function.
Okay.
For the cubic function, some cases, its inverse is a function, and some cases its inverse is not function. For the cubic function, okay? So we need to check this one. How we can graph? Just by using mood table, which is 7.
Mode 7.
Mode 7. Can you write this equation, please? Because I will switch to the, or I will open the.
I have it here
now.
so
Okay.
printed the
I will.
sheet off.
Okay. Just 1 minute to open to let you show see the calculator. Can you see the calculator now?
It starts
Yes.
from.
Okay.
Oh, never mind.
For
It
this one.
disappeared. Now I can see it.
So just 1 minute. Sorry.
Wait, Mr. Slam, how'd you get that calculator?
Yeah, so where do we download it?
From the internet. It's just write fx 570 and you'll find it. Okay.
FX.
570 BN. Okay, so we mood table, mood 7. Then to write the function, alpha closed bracket, x to the power 3, then minus 6 x to the power 2 plus 12 x minus 8. Any problem now for writing? Any problem for writing?
No.
Okay.
No.
So then press
no.
equal.
Mode.
The start.
Sorry,
Mood
what?
7. Mood 7. Mood 7.
Mode 7.
Mood 7. Mood
Mode 7?
Mood table. Mood table.
7.
I don't know table in your calculator. What's it?
Alright.
Your calculator 570 or 999 991.
570.
570. You find mood 7. Both of them mood 7. Okay. So we will start from -10 because I'm choosing any value, -10, and end at 10 to read. Step 1, yes. Just 1 minute because the number is too much. So we can say I will start from -6. Start from -6, end at 6. Step 1. Okay. If that's -6, you will find that the value of the function -512, -5, -334. So we can graph the function now.
Wait, so what's your steps?
Sorry?
What's your step? Like first step?
Just writing the function, start from -6 and end at 6.
Okay.
How'd you... Wait, why -6 though? Or you can use any...
Choose any value. Choose any value.
Okay.
Just we need to find. So you will find the only part that you can graph starting from maybe from -2 and the last one at 6. So I need from -2 to 6. You understand why or not?
Yeah.
No.
Because you can read here from the graph. If that's -2, the small number, -2 is 64, -64. So I can represent it. -1 is -27. But if you go up, you will find 125. Then you will find that 216.
Okay.
The number is too much. So I just take from, I just choose a random number.
Yeah.
Until I find a number that I can represent it for the cubic function. Okay? If you don't have a graphic calculator, now we need to solve without using graphic. Suppose that we don't have a graphic calculator, and we need to solve by using the normal way. Any problem? So I'm choosing from -2 to +6. Okay? Any problem now for this one?
Yes, the numbers that I got are different to yours. Probably like
Because you use different numbers. Or yeah, you wrote the function with different way. Did you get any other number?
Yeah, I got like negative 1,000. Well, I'm doing it like for the third time now.
Choose
Check.
again for this one. When x equals 2. When x equals negative 2. Just for the number. Okay, now complete the table, please. X and y, I said from negative 2. What is the value for negative 2? It's negative 64. That's right?
Yeah.
Negative 1. Negative 1.
Negative 27.
Negative 27. 0.
8.
Negative 8.
8, negative 8.
1.
Negative 1.
Negative 1.
2.
Oh, wait, they are the same.
0.
0.
3.
1.
1.
4.
8.
8. 5. 27.
27.
And 6. 64. So I will graph now this one. Please, if you are not using the mic, please, if there is any noise beside you, please, no need for the mic, please. Okay? So I will make the vertical scale as 10 and the horizontal, or the vertical as 20 and the horizontal as 1 to find enough space to draw. So the first one is negative 2 and 64. So that is the negative 1 and negative 64, 20, 40, 60, and this place. Negative 1 and 27, negative 1 and 27 will be here. 0 and the negative 8, it will be here. I make the vertical as 20 and the horizontal as 1. Okay, to find enough space. 1 and negative 1 would be here. 2 and 0. 3 and 1. 4 and 8 by this way. 5 and 27 will be here, and 6 and 64 will be here. So if you want to graph, you will find the graph by this way. That's how the graph will be look like. Yeah. That's how the graph will be look like. So its inverse will be function or not?
Yes.
The inverse is the function. The inverse f of
Yeah.
represent function. Please يعني يا عبد الرحمن. عبد الرحمن. Please don't open the mic, please. يا عبد الرحمن, please don't open the mic. You have two options. Don't open the mic or use the handset, please. Because there is a lot of noise beside you, and switch off the TV. The inverse is function.
بس صوت المكيف.
طيب الله يكرمك. انا يعني والله انا قافل المكيف وقاعد عادي عشان الصوت ما يطلعش عندك وعالي. يعني انا مستحمل بقعد طول النهار والله من غير المكيف. يا اما تبعد بعيد عن المكيف. بس هي دي المشكله. طيب
Mr. Islam,
yes.
one question. For the steps, you used any random number, so?
Wait, sir.
Choose the number that you can represent. Sorry? Your question.
How to know if it's function or not function?
Drawing a straight line.
Just coming now?
No, sir. I came like 10 minutes ago. I came like 5 minutes late.
5 minutes late? Can you repeat what we said now?
7 minutes late.
Okay. Can you repeat now?
Yeah, we said we use mode 7.
No, before mode 7. You just came from mode 7?
No, I came from the first. I don't know.
طيب خلاص. When you know, just inform me. For number 3, what is the type of this graph? What is the type of this graph? We just Amr.
Yes, sir.
Again for this one, I just choose the number that I can represent. Suppose that I'm choosing the number, and I didn't find that this number cannot be represented. I need how the graph of the cubic function will be look like.
Oh yeah, that fits into the.
How the graph of the cubic function will be look like? That is the graph of the cubic function. Is it right?
Okay.
So
yes.
I don't know which number that I have to use. So I said I will start from negative 10 to positive 10. to choose at which value you will find a reflection. You will find that there is a positive value, there is 0, and there is a negative values. You understand it? I'm choosing which number which fit my graph. That's for the cubic function. Instead of using solving and all of that. That is the easiest way for the cubic function. But for the quadratic function, there is formula for this one. What is the type of this function? What is the type of this function?
Reciprocal.
Sorry?
Is that a reciprocal
Fractional function.
A reciprocal function. How the graph will be look like?
Like a parabola.
Not a parabola.
It's like two y's like facing away from each other.
Yes, two parts. That is the first part, and that is the second part. So we have two lines, the vertical line and there is lagging, Abdullah, I think, in your computer. So there is two lines, the vertical line of asymptote and the horizontal line of asymptote. We have two lines of asymptote for this graph. What is the vertical line? How we can find the vertical line of asymptote for the reciprocal function?
0.
How we know that's 0? Your answer is right. How we know that's 0?
Where the denominator equals 0.
The value which makes the denominator is equal 0. The values which makes the denominator equal 0. So whatever the value is not necessary to be 0 at all times. Suppose that we have x minus 2 at the denominator. So the line of asymptote will be 2.
Yes.
The value which makes the denominator equal 0. That's the line of asymptote. What is the horizontal line of asymptote? What is the horizontal line of asymptote?
X are both asymptotes.
The vertical line. So we said the vertical line. What is the equation of a vertical line? X equal. So X equals 0. What is the horizontal line? Because the degree of numerator is smaller than the degree of denominator, so it's always will be y equals 0. The degree of numerator is smaller than the degree of denominator, so it's always will be y equals 0. خلاص? If the two degrees, the degree of numerator equal to the degree of denominator, so just take the leading coefficient divided by the leading coefficient. So for the first one, that is the graph. The graph will be look like that. That is the first one, and that is the second one. So I have a question now, how we can graph that? Again, go back to the function that we explained it, and I told you that you have to know the name of the function, how the graph will be look like. So that is the graph of the reciprocal function. Is the inverse will be function or not? The inverse will be function or not for this one?
Yes.
It will be.
The inverse f of x, f inverse of x will be function. Any problem for this one? For number 4, how the graph will be look like?
Quadratic.
Whatever the graph now will be a parabola. Whatever the graph will be, at any position, it will be a parabola, like the absolute value. At any position, it will be V shape. So the inverse for the absolute value will be function or not function? Not function. And even the parabola, if you can draw a vertical line intersect the graph at two horizontal points. So the inverse is not function. Yeah, Omar Al-Dakhail. Again, for this one, to know the relation is a function or not function by using the vertical line test. The relation is a function or not function by using the vertical line test. The inverse will be function or not by using the horizontal line test. If you can draw a horizontal line, intersect the graph at more than one point, it means this relation is not function. خلاص كده؟ خلاص؟
خلاص يلا.
Okay.
خلاص.
For the function f of x and its inverse, just we need to graph to find the inverse. And in graphing the inverse function, we replace the domain instead of the range and range instead of the domain to swap them. So
I didn't quite get that.
Again for this one. Suppose that I'm saying the quadratic function f of x equals x to the power 2. How the graph will be look like? X bar 2.
Okay, it will be a parabola.
It will be a parabola. What is the domain?
Domain is all real values.
Domain will be R, and the range
greater than or equal to 0
is equals to y is greater than or equal to 0. To find its inverse, so the inverse for this function, the domain will
greater
be
than
x is greater than or equal to 0, and the range will be R. Just swap them, okay? So how we can find the inverse of the function? Number one, determine whether the inverse of the function, determine whether the function f of x has inverse or not. If it does, find the inverse of the function. We need to check if the function, and we need to find, to state any restriction of the domain, on the domain. What is the type of this function? Now it's fractional function. So we have here, for the first one, it has
inverse function.
just we just know how to graph this one. For the first one, we have a vertical line. Again, we revise. We have a vertical line. What is the vertical line? Because it's a fraction. Because we have a vertical line. What is the vertical line of asymptote for this one?
2.
Negative 2.
X equals negative 2. X equals negative 2. And we have horizontal line, which is y equal. What is the value of y?
1.
1. Why 1? Because the 2 degrees are equal. The degree of the first one is 1. The degree of the second one is 1. Just take the leading coefficient. The leading coefficient here is 1, and the leading coefficient here is 1. So 1 divided by 1 equals 1. That is the leading coefficient. So how the graph will be look like? That is the coordinates. So from the vertical line from negative 2, and from the horizontal line from 1, and that's how the graph will be look like.
Oh.
You understand it?
Yeah.
Any problem for this one?
Could you explain how we get the y line again?
Again, the y again. Again, y line. Again, for this one. For the vertical line, what is the meaning of vertical line of asymptote? At which value the function is undefined. At which value the function is undefined. When this function is undefined?
Negative 2.
When the denominator is equal to 0. Is that right?
Yeah.
So at the first we have here x is not equals to negative 2. So we can say that we have a horizontal line. We have here, vertical line of asymptote. Because at negative, just 1 minute, that is the coordinate. If x equals negative 2, at negative 2, the value of the function undefined. So here we have a vertical line of asymptote. The graph will never go through the negative 2. You understand this one? That is the vertical line.
Yeah.
Okay. Now about the horizontal line of asymptote. How we can find it? We have 3 cases. We have the function f of x equals a of x over b of x. If a is smaller than b, if a equals b, if a is greater than b. If a is smaller than b, if a is smaller than b, then we have, that's constant. We have a horizontal line which is y equals x, y equals 0. The degree of numerator is smaller than the degree of denominator. Suppose that we have x over x power 2 plus 5. That's degree to the power 1, and that's degree to the power 2. It's mean we have a horizontal line.
Okay.
So the second point, the degree of numerator is equal to the degree of denominator. How we can find it? Just take the leading coefficient. What is the leading coefficient here?
1.
The leading coefficient here is
1.
So it will be y equals 1 over 1, which equals y equals 1. You understand? Just take the leading coefficient.
Okay.
If the degree of numerator is greater than the degree of denominator, it's mean there is no horizontal line of asymptote.
Okay.
Mimia?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the first one here, now we have a vertical line and we have another horizontal line at y equals 1.
Wait, sir, can you explain again where you got 1 from?
Omar, Huzaifa will tell you.
Okay. So
anything related to sleeping, no. Don't ask me about anything. If you are sleeping, no. If you don't understand, wallah, I will explain it. Sleeping, no, for me. Wallah, I have a problem with that.
Do I actually explain it to him? Do I explain it to him?
Yes, explain.
It's up to you.
Okay. So,
if you need to, I will make you the host. No problem for me.
Sir, if I say something wrong, tell me.
No problem. Wallah, just say. Even if that's wrong, no problem.
Okay, there are three cases. One where where A is greater than B, one where A is equal to B, and one where A is less than B. So when A is greater than B, that means that there is no solution. A being
He's talking about this part. يا سلطان.
Okay.
يا سلطان. اتقهويت يا سلطان ولا ما اتقهويت؟ والله شكلك ما اتقهويت يا سلطان.
Repeat after him. Repeat after him.
When A is less than B.
Sultan, repeat after him.
The horizontal line.
خلاص يا شباب خلاص.
The horizontal line is equal to 0. If A is equal to B, both of their powers are equal, then you take the coefficient of both of them and you
That is
divide
number 2. That's he's talking about number 2 now. Can you see number 2?
Case number 2.
Case number 2. If the degree of A is equal to the degree of B, it's mean
So
x
that's
bar
where we got
2
one from.
and down x bar 2, x bar 3 and x bar 3, x bar 1 and x bar 1. Just leave the power. Take the coefficient. What is the coefficient here? It's 1. What is the coefficient here? It's 1. So 1 over 1, which equals 1. معلوم؟
Okay.
100
ايه
حبيبي يا سلطان. So now the graph, that's the graph. Any problem for this one? Any problem? So how we can find the inverse?
Yeah.
You remember how we find the inverse?
Yeah.
What is step number 1?
First we
remember that we have the domain. What is the domain?
The domain of this function is
X is great.
R
It's
different the set
R
of negative 2. Without negative 2. And the range?
What is the range?
It's R. Apart from negative 1. Or without 1, without 1.
R without 1.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. How we find the inverse? Add the first. Replace f of x with y, so it will be y equals. Yes?
How do you find range? How do you find range?
From the line of asymptote. The horizontal line.
Yeah. Clear.
خلاص?
Yeah.
Clear or not clear?
Yeah.
Because this part is important.
I understand.
خلاص? Okay. So just replace f of x. Step number 1, replace f of x with y, so it will be y equals x minus 1 over x plus 2. Step number 2. What is the step number 2?
Flip.
Find the asymptotes.
No.
Okay, flip.
We're
I'm confused.
We need now to find the
It's
inverse.
inverse.
Now we need to find the
inverse. You
inverse.
literally-
Yes.
Okay.
So change x instead of y and y
Okay.
instead of x. So it will be x
Okay.
equals
X plus 2
over x minus 1.
y minus 1 over y
Y
plus
plus
2.
2. So how we solve it? We need to solve for y.
We multiply x with y plus 2.
So it will be xy
X times
plus 2x
plus 2
equals y minus 1. Then
XY
So why
minus
is it
y
xy? Oh yeah.
xy minus y
plus 1
equals negative
So
1
equals 3.
minus
Plus
2x.
Yeah, minus
I
Oh,
just
right.
shift y to the other side, left side, and shift x to the right
The right
side.
side.
You understand? Solving for y. Then,
Divide both sides with x.
please don't say divide with x again. One more time, please. That's variable. Don't divide by variable. Divide by a number, because x could be equal 0.
Divide both sides by negative 2.
There is no negative 2. Just take y as a common
No,
factor
minus
from
2.
here. Y as a common factor. So what are the remaining? X
X minus
X
1
minus 2i.
minus 1 equals negative. We can
Negative
take negative
1.
as a common factor, so it will be
yeah
1 plus
Negative 1
2x
plus 2.
or 2x plus 1. 2x plus 1. So shifting x minus 1 to the other side, so it will be y equals negative outside, 2x plus 1
X plus 1
over
x minus 1.
x minus 1. Now we find the value of y, so this will be the inverse. F inverse of x will be equals negative 2x plus 1 over x minus 1. Can you find the domain for this function? For the new one? The domain?
The domain is equals to r except for x equals 1.
Yeah.
Except 1. That's the range. Is that right?
Yeah.
That was the range.
Yes.
Is that right? So now to check your answer, the answer is right or wrong. Now you need to find the range. What is the range? Range. We find the range from the horizontal line.
Yeah, that is 2.
Again, we find the range from the horizontal line. Where is the Abdurrahman? Just 1 minute. We find the range from the horizontal line. What is the equation for the horizontal line for this one?
2x plus 1.
Distribute the negative. Negative 2 minus 1. So it will be?
Negative 2.
Negative 2 over 1.
Yeah, that
remember how we find the horizontal line. The horizontal line, the degree here is 1. The degree here is 1. The 2 degrees are equal. So we just take the coefficient, the leading coefficient over the leading coefficient. So it will be r different of negative 2. It was the domain.
Also, I thought it was A is greater than B until you did the negative.
No. The power, not power, not the coefficient. Degree. From the degree. From the power. I said the power equal the power. Degree equal the degree. Take the leading coefficient over the leading coefficient. Degree equal degree. Leave the coefficient now. Just look at the degree. When I say A is smaller than B, I'm talking about the degree.
The power, yeah.
The power. Look at the power. Halas, you understand this point? This part is important. Any problem for this one? Did anyone didn't understand this point? No problem for me for repeating this part again. No problem for me for repeating because this part is important.
Can you do it again?
Which one?
Just
from the beginning?
So I understood it.
If you didn't understand just only which part that you need me to repeat it, I will repeat it. Wallahi, no problem. Even from the beginning, no problem, because this part is important.
From the beginning.
From the beginning.
From question 1.
Y,
from
y negative 1 over, or take away 1 over.
Sorry. Hussein, what you said again, please?
From the part after you said that x equals y might take away 1 over y plus 2. From part after that.
Just 1 minute. Which part? From line number 1, 2, 3, 4.
From line number 2.
Line number 2. Okay. That's solving for y. Solving equation. I will tell you that. Type again for this one. The question say determine whether the function f has inverse or not. How you know that the function has inverse or not? That's point number 1. Point number 1. If there is inverse, yes or no. How we know that? That's point number 1. Even if the answer is right or wrong, wallahi, no problem, because this part is important.
You do the x.
You want to know the inverse, right?
Yes, I need to know now. My question is the function has inverse or not?
If it only changes one line, only 1 point horizontally.
Yes, that is the question. Please, we need to understand the concept, please. The concept is important for this part. The concept is important to know if the function has an inverse or not by using the horizontal line test. The horizontal line test. Okay? It means you need to graph. What is the type of this function? So from each point, we know how to solve. Question number 1, determine whether the function has inverse or not. How we know that determine if the function has inverse or not? By using the horizontal line test. What is the horizontal line test? If the graph intersect, if the line intersect the graph at more than 1 point, has no the inverse is not function. There is inverse, but the inverse is not function. Okay? The inverse is a relation, but not function. So number 1, we need to graph. What is the type of this function? Because as the form of a fraction, it's fractional function or reciprocal function. Not reciprocal, it's fractional function. Reciprocal when you have 1 over a function. That's the reciprocal function, 1 over x. Okay? But now we have a fraction. So which type of fraction that we have? The degree of numerator is equal to the degree of denominator. So because you have a fraction, it means there is exception for the domain. There is some values and the function is undefined. At which value the function is undefined? At which value of x the function is undefined? The value which makes the denominator is equal to 0.
Yeah.
Which value which makes the denominator is equal to 0?
-2.
-2. So that's the first point. X is not equal to -2. And that will be defined as vertical line of asymptote. The value which makes the function is undefined is called the vertical line of asymptote. Any problem for this point?
No.
Okay, so because we have a fraction, so now we have two lines, the vertical line of asymptote and the horizontal line of asymptote. How we know the horizontal line of asymptote? From the three rules that we have. The degree of A is smaller than the degree of B. The degree of A is equal to the degree of B. The degree of A is greater than the degree of B. The degree of A, which is the numerator, that's A of x, and that's B of x. If A of x is smaller than B of x, it means there is one horizontal line, which is y equals 0. If the degree of A equals the degree of B, just take the leading coefficient, so the coefficient over the coefficient. If the degree of A is greater than the degree of B, there is no horizontal line. Huh? Any problem for this one?
No.
Okay. Just we take the horizontal. We take the vertical line from the domain. We just find the vertical line from the domain. From the domain, we find the vertical line. From the range, we find the horizontal line. The relation between the domain and the vertical line, the range and the horizontal line. So now y is equals 1 over 1, which equals to 1.
Yeah.
So from that we can find the domain. What is the domain? The domain is all values except the value which make the denominator is equal to 0, which is -2.
1.
-2.
Yes.
The range. You can find all of the answer except 1. The only answer that you will not find from this function, if you choose any value of x, you will not find the answer equals 1. You will not find the answer equals 1. Okay? So it will be all values except 1. Why except 1? Because we have a horizontal line of asymptote. Horizontal line, it means there is no value. The graph is not defined at this number. Okay? Now we need, that's the first point. Now there is a value of the inverse is a function. So question number 2 now. Find the inverse. What are the steps of finding the inverse? Step number 1. Replace f of x with y. Step number 2. Change or swap x to be y and y to be x. Number 3. Solve for y. Number 4. Replace y with f inverse of x. At the beginning, we just remove f of x and put y. Then, when you finish, when you find y again, remove it and put f negative x.
So what happened to the reciprocal?
Which one?
The reciprocal. We found the reciprocal of 5, right? When finding the inverse.
Which reciprocal?
Then,
Which reciprocal for this?
Like first we replaced x with y, right?
Step by step, we're moving step by step. We're moving step by step, okay? So the first one, we just remove f of x and find y. So it will be x minus 1 over x plus 2. That's step number 1. Step number 2?
Yeah.
Change.
Replace x
Change.
with
Replace
y
x
and
with y and y with x. So it will be x equals y minus 1 over y plus 2. Step number 3, solve for y. What is the meaning of solving for y? Write y at the left-hand side and all of the expression at the right-hand side. Put equal between y and all of the expression.
Okay.
So how are we going to solve this one? Just cross multiplication.
Cross multiplication, yeah.
Cross multiplication, so it will be x multiplied by y plus 2 is equals 1 multiplied by y minus 1 by using the distributive property. So it will be x times y, it will be xy plus 2x is equals y minus 1. Any problem for this one?
No.
Okay. Suppose that we have equation 3x plus 2 equals 2x minus 5. How we solve this one? Just look at this one. Leave this one. I'm not using this.
Okay.
I'm solving under 6.
Oh, yeah, solve it. Okay.
How we solve this one?
Bring all the 5's x's on the left side.
Circle the x and underline the number. Circle the x and underline. Yeah. Okay. So we just collect. We bring all of the circle together and bring all of the underline together. So if you shift anything from left to right or from right to left, it changes its sign. So 3x minus 2x is equal negative 5 minus 2. 3x minus x is 1x. Negative 7 and negative 2, negative 5 and negative 2 equal negative 7. That's what we are following now. Now we have y, we are solving for y. So circle y and underline x. Shift y, collect all of the circle together and all of the y's together, all of the underline together. So it will be xy, because we shift y to the other side, it was positive, so it will be negative, equals negative 1. We shift 2x to the other side, it will be minus 2x. Any problem until now?
No.
Because now we need to solve if you have y and y. So just take y as the common factor. That is a way of solving. If I ask you x power 2 minus 2x equals 0, how are you going to solve this one? By factorizing, taking x as a common factor. So it will be x minus 2 equals 0. That's right? Solving. Ya shabab. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Just take x as a common factor.
Sir,
now I'm taking y as a common factor.
X minus 1.
So it will be x minus 1 equals negative 1 minus 2x. So I'll write, I will rearrange it. Just write x at the first, negative 2x minus 1. Now we find that y.
How'd you get negative 1?
Sorry?
How'd you get negative 1 for x?
That's negative 1 here. Negative 1. Negative 1.
Yeah.
No, for the last bit that you did in the brackets, x minus 1.
Divided by y. What is the meaning of take common factor? Divided by y.
Oh, right. Okay, okay.
I said take y as the common factor. Y as the common factor, so the remainder for the first one, x minus 1.
X. Okay.
So it's mean y now is equals negative 2x minus 1 over x minus 1. If you don't remember how we can solve how we find the inverse, I will send you the video now for how finding the inverse. You can see that's for algebra 1. Now that is the function. We find the value of y, then we can say that the inverse of the function is negative 2x minus 1 over x minus 1. Any problem now for this one?
No.
Okay. So now we need to find
common factor. You take out the common factor.
Which common factor?
When you do xy minus y, you divide
yes,
by
I'm taking, y. Not dividing by y. Not dividing
divide
by y. Please.
Okay.
Don't divide by a variable. Don't say I will divide by variable.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't divide by variable? Because this variable could be equal 0. Can we divide any number by 0?
No.
It's a variable. You can divide by any number except 0. So this variable, one of the cases could be equal 0.
Mm-hmm.
Hello? So because of that, I said, don't divide by 0. When I finish solving, I said now I have a variable at denominator. So it's mean there is exception for the domain. X is not equals 1. So the domain will be all values except 1.
Except 1, yeah.
You understand it?
Yes.
Because we have a fraction, it's mean we have a horizontal line of asymptote. The degree of numerator is equal to the degree of denominator. So what is the horizontal line of asymptote? The leading coefficient, coefficient over the leading coefficient. So it will be y equals negative 2 over 1, then y equals negative 2. We said we have a relation between the domain and the vertical line, the range and the horizontal line. It's mean now the range will be range
and negative 2. All
numbers except negative 2. Look at the first domain that we have. The first domain that we have all number except negative 2, and also here all number except negative 2. the domain becomes range, and range becomes the domain.
Yes.
You understand it? That is the meaning of the inverse. Domain of the first would be the range of the second, and the range of the second will be the domain of the first. Any problem for this one?
No.
Because we finished now. I think that we finished.
We have 4 minutes. We have like 3 minutes.
Sorry, can you scroll up a bit?
Up there, I didn't see anything up.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
This one? You need this picture?
Yeah,
you want to understand anything?
Someone screenshot.
I will send it now. I will send it now. You need this one.
Okay, خلاص.
In our group, huh?
Yeah, Telegram, yeah.
Yes, I send it. خلاص. Just if you want any picture, just inform me and I'll send it directly.
Should we do the 6th one and send you?
Because I have a session now, so I will continue solving because there is many lessons now, many questions that we didn't finish. Okay. Any problem? You understand this idea for this one? You understand the idea for this one? Huh? Any problem for this one?
Yeah, I got it. No.
اللهم بلغت. اللهم بلغت.
Yes, sir. No problem.
No problem, sir.
Very good.
No problem,
خلاص؟
sir.
No problem.
السلام عليكم.